abandoning Islam. An eyewitness told ICC the 4 Christians were given the chance to renounce their faith in Jesus Christ and to embrace Islam. They refused, even though the terrorists promised to release them. Al-Shabaab has been waging war against the tiny Christian population in Somalia. It's seeking to overthrow the government and establish an Islamic state.
Well, see, that's what happens when you try to leave Islam. They give you a chance. You need to renounce your relationship with Jesus Christ. If you do that, then we'll let you live. You try to convert to Christianity from Islam, the penalty is death from this religion of peace. Really? Well, that's what happens. And that's what happens under Sharia law. Sharia law goes much deeper than that. Sharia law is part of the caliphate. It's part of the Islamic takeover of government ran by Islam, and the rules, the laws that go with that are Sharia law.
Stoning for adultery, amputations for theft, death for apostates, and second-class status for Christians and Jews. This is life under Sharia law, the Islamic system practiced in countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Great Britain. Yes, Great Britain. There are reportedly some 85 Sharia courts now operating there, with Islamic judges ruling on cases ranging from financial to marriage disputes among British Muslims.
We went into some proceedings, and there were a couple of Islamic judges sitting up above the rest, and there was one solitary Muslim woman who was suing for divorce.
Alan Craig is a former city councillor in East London, home to several Sharia courts where women face open discrimination.
A woman's witness value is half that of a man. So, that they will tend, therefore, to take the man's position in a divorce.
Craig is working with Baroness Carolyn Cox to pass a bill in Britain's House of Lords protecting women from the Sharia oppression. Muslim women here face intimidation within their communities to settle things the Sharia way. And according to Craig, some wrongly believe Islamic courts are their only option.
But what we're trying to do is say Muslim women, especially in this country, need to be informed they actually have other rights, in our view, better rights under English law.
Sharia courts operate outside of British common law. Their defenders say the courts are legal under a 1996 Arbitration Act that allows people to settle differences through methods of their own choosing. These courts have popped up in several British cities with large Muslim populations, including Birmingham, Bradford, Manchester, and London.
This is the Tower Hamlets section of East London, and it's really the epicenter of the Sharia movement here in Great Britain.
This impoverished borough of East London has been dubbed the Islamic Republic of Tower Hamlets. Its first elected mayor is a Muslim who critics say has ties to extremist groups. His office declined CBN News' request for an interview. Radical Muslims have threatened women here for not covering up, and gays have been beaten in the streets.
If people are afraid of having their hands cut, don't steal. If you don't want to be stoned to death, don't commit adultery.
Anjem Chowdhury wants Sharia law to rule Great Britain. Last year, his followers put up posters around Tower Hamlets labeling it a Sharia-controlled zone where Islamic rules are enforced.
We're sitting in a beautiful park here in London. How would this park look different? Would this park look different if Sharia came to the UK and your vision came to the UK?
Certainly, the adult women, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, will have to cover themselves, as indeed would the men.
Craig fears the growth of Sharia law in areas like East London could lead to Muslim enclaves isolated from mainstream British society.
My feeling around here is that those that don't, those that isolate themselves, those that separate themselves, is growing faster than those who what we would call progressive. A big marker for that it would be the number of women, the growth of the number of women round here wearing the full face veil, the burqa, the full burqa with the face veil. And it's extraordinary how younger and younger the women get.
So could Sharia courts come to America? The idea sounds far-fetched to some. Yet according to the Center for Security Policy in Washington, there have been some 50 court cases in at least 23 states that have seen conflicts between Sharia law and American state law. And 4 states have adopted legislation called American Laws for American Courts that would protect U.S. citizens from the use of any type of foreign law like Sharia in the courtroom. Back in East London, Craig says the fight against Sharia is much more than a religious or legal issue.
It's actually a human rights thing, and that's what we're doing. And we're working in partnership with non-Christians as well on this, trying to bolster and strengthen the position for Muslim women.
Eric Stakelbeck, CBN News, reporting from East London.
So I have a question for you folks in Europe. Why are you allowing this? Why? Well, one of the most influential countries in the world for thousands of years, and you're allowing this. Why are you allowing this? The Telegraph recently made headlines in a survey that suggested a fifth of the European Union will be Muslim by 2050. This is, if anything, an understatement of the situation. Since once you subtract Eastern European states, focus in on Western European countries like England and France and Italy or Sweden, Islam will comprise enough minority to be considered a Muslim state. For each one of these will become a Muslim state. Even the most pessimistic statistics will grow gloomier if 75 million Turks inside the Islamic Turkey will be part of the European Union. Are you going to let Turkey into the European Union? Russia estimates Islam will become its prominent religion by 2030. The Russians, both under the USSR and Putin, have done everything they can to try and raise the birth rate, but it remains half of other countries like Uzbekistan or Chechnya, with the Russian population set to fall by almost 50 million to 100 million in 2040, 2050. The Muslim birth rate will have made up all of the surplus. They will be dominant. They've tried financial incentives, even made an effort to at luring back its former Jewish immigrants. Russia's now counting on its state-run network of mosques, which can only preach jihad in America, England, and other Russian infidels to maintain control. This is an absurd strategy. But whether it's in Russia or all the way across Europe, this is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. I just cannot believe you folks are allowing this. I mean, I think there's some, not all, there's some all across the EU who are so riddled with guilt about political correctness, just like they are right here in America, and have a lack of understanding of Islam to the point where they're just allowing this. They're saying this is just something, it's political correctness. It's just something they feel like they need to do. Europe may not boast a population that is by turns of alcohol poisoning or something. Europe is dying the slow death of socialism instead. High taxes, late marriages, low birth rates. Any attempts to compensate for gaps in the workforce during economic upswings all across Europe are met with immigration. The same that they're trying to do right here in America. They say that they need extra workers, so they're bringing in immigrants. The immigrants they're allowing in, both here in America and for you folks in Europe, are obviously from other countries. That makes them immigrants, but a majority of them are Muslims. And especially over there, because Muslims all across the EU are emboldened because they get victory after victory, and all it takes is something small. Allow them to have to block off streets and to tell people they can't come out during the prayers. And the next thing you know, they become even bolder and bolder because every one of those are a victory. The only way you're going to stop this is to stop the victories. So when they go out and block the streets, when they want to have their prayers in the middle of the streets and tell people they can't come out of their homes, if they want to put up a sign in your boroughs that say this is controlled by Sharia law or this is an Islamic area, you need to march in there, take those things down, and push those people back. Because if you don't, you're going to be taken over. Every one of those are a victory. Come on, have the intestinal fortitude to protect your own country. Yeah, you folks in the UK, all of you folks all the way to France, all the way across America, reach down somewhere down there and grab hold of something that's going to give you the intestinal fortitude of self-preservation. Come on, people. You know, the old Europeans are probably going to live comfortably. They're going to go out on vacations. They're going to have plenty of time for hobbies and entertainment because they're child-free. Or if they have any children, they're going to be pampered. The new Europe is likely to be named Muhammad, to have twice as many children, if not twice as many wives, and you're allowing that too. Why are you allowing this? Why are you folks in America, why are we allowing this? You know, the end result is not very hard to project at all. Europe's left-of-center parties have embraced Muslims as a voting public, spending their speeding up legalization and what they can be described as integration, which it's not. Muslims are not integrating into Europe. Europe's being integrated into Islam. That's the difference. Islam is not integrating into your country, into our country. Instead, it's the other way around. We are capitulating to them. They are not becoming Brits or French or German or American. Instead, they're coming in and saying, we are Islam. We are not American. We're not French. We're not German. We're not Italian. We're not British. We're not any of these things. The only laws that these people regard are the laws of the Hadith and the Surah and the Quran. And the rest of you can go, well, you know. And your government's saying, oh, okay. You know, especially in Europe, you know, your governments have increasingly chosen to bow to what's going to be inevitable. You're accepting the reality of a Muslim takeover. And you're allowing them to do it on their terms. Your government is trying to find common ground with the domestic Muslim population through Europe, accepting some of these Muslim customs. You know, these Sharia courts are proof of that. Muslims, in turn, accept some of European practices. All of these plans all center on the fallacious premise that a non-Muslim minority can rule over a Muslim majority through anything but constant brute force. You know, and Russia's doing the same thing. These European states are putting their hope in integration, and they're missing out on the reality that they're trying to bail out of the boat with a bucket that has a hole in it. It's not going to work. Look, you can't wave a magic wand and solve this problem with some headscarf band. That's not going to fix the problem. There's cultural and religious divisions that will not be leapfrogged with all of these well-meaning rhetoric that's coming from your government. particularly when